Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, for those of you who've been geeking out on this channel for a while now, you know we have been covering disturbing trend after disturbing trend after disturbing trend. And most of it has to do with a lot of these crazy state legislatures, which have never read the Second Amendment, certainly have not read the Bruin opinion. But amongst this litany of terribleness comes a ray of light. And we have seen this very positive trend develop. It started actually here in Washington, of all places, but it continues to grow. And that's when we're beginning to see local state governments push back on some of this crazy gun control legislation. So today, we're going to learn about a real heavyweight who's going to step into the ring and tell the ATF where to put it. So today, let's spend a few minutes and talk about when it's your governor telling the ATF to get bent. Okay, so the topic we're talking about today is my new favorite governor, and will probably be yours after this video. And no, Jay Inslee, unfortunately, that will not be you. No, I'm talking about Greg Gianforte, governor for the great state of Montana, because he has recently penned a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland telling the Attorney General what the state of Montana thinks about ATF's new pistol brace rule. Now, to go back in our time machine here for a moment, we will notice that this is a very wonderful trend that is developing. It actually started a couple of months ago out here in all places, Washington State. That's when the Washington State Sheriff's Association wrote a nasty little letter to our governor, Jay Inslee, about some of the crazy gun control legislation kicking around in this year's legislative session. Now, not to be outdone by that, along came the Illinois Sheriff's Association, who told Governor J.B. Pritzker exactly what they thought of the new assault weapon ban and the method in which it was passed in the state of Illinois. And for those of you who've not geeked out on that issue yet, you really do need to check out what's happened in Illinois, because everybody has a reason to be pretty furious about that. Well, not to be outdone by that, along comes the Arkansas Sheriff's Association. And you see, that Sheriff's Association, well, they don't have to really worry about their state government because they let the people live free like Americans. But no, instead, they decided to give the ATF a piece of their mind, exactly what they thought about ATF's new pistol brace rule and what their level of involvement would be if that rule were to be enforced inside the state of Arkansas. Well, certainly not to be outdone by that, along comes the Oklahoma State Sheriff's Association, in particular this sheriff right here, who not only penned a letter, but also did this video telling Merrick Garland exactly what the Oklahoma State Sheriff's Association thinks of ATF's new pistol brace rule. Will enter into the ring a true heavyweight now, Governor Greg Gianforte of the state of Montana, because the governor has written a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland about ATF's new pistol brace rule, and the governor has the following to say. Dear Attorney General Garland, on January 31st, 2023, the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, published Final Rule 88 FR 6478, revising criteria for firearms with stabilizing braces. Under this rule, nearly all firearms with attached stabilizing braces are now subject to taxation and registration requirements of the National Firearms Act. This decision further erodes the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding Montanans. Our right to keep and bear arms is integral to Montana's and our nation's rich heritage, and this rule directly violates our long-held traditions. The rule also ignores the plain design and intent of stabilizing braces to help disabled veterans fire large-format pistols. As a matter of law, the state of Montana and its political subdivisions cannot enforce or assist the ATF with enforcement of this rule. The 2021 Montana State Legislature passed, and I signed into law, House Bill 258, which states, and like the state of Arkansas, like the state of Oklahoma, and a few others of you who've been very braggadocious about this in the comment section, giving us here in Washington a lot of freedom envy, your states were in a very Nostradamus-like fashion kind of foresaw this monkey games that's going on with our Second Amendment rights. And they drafted some very clear legislation that theoretically prevents the federal government from infringing upon the rights of your state citizens. Now, we can get into a whole separate geek session here about federal supremacy and all things like that, but I do like where this legislation is coming from. How does Montana's legislation read? Well, it reads like this. A peace officer, state employee, or employee of a political subdivision is prohibited from enforcing, assisting in the enforcement of, or otherwise cooperating in the enforcement of a federal ban on firearms, magazines, or ammunition, and is also prohibited from participating in any federal enforcement action implementing a federal ban on firearms, magazines, or ammunition. That same legislation defines a federal ban as a federal law, executive order, rule, regulation that is enacted, adopted, or becomes effective on or after January 1st, 2021, or a new or more restrictive interpretation of a law that existed on January 1st, 2021, that infringes upon, calls in question, or prohibits, restricts, or requires individual licensure for or registration of the purchase, ownership, possession, transfer, or use of any firearm, magazine, or other ammunition feeding device, or other firearm accessory. And the governor then concludes the letter by stating, this rule creates additional barriers to lawful gun ownership and undermines our Montana way of life. I strongly urge you to reverse this decision, to acknowledge and respect Montana's long history of responsible gun ownership. Sincerely, Greg Gianforte, Governor, Montana. And well done, Governor. Now, I think the thing that we really got to applaud the Montana State Legislature back in 2021 for passing this bill is the fact that they could really see kind of some of the tea leaves here, where this was likely going and how the ATF was going to be turned loose like a rabid dog that's now off a leash. And kudos to the state legislature for including this language in this statute, or a new or more restrictive interpretation of a law that existed on January 1st, 2021. And that is exactly and directly on point to what's going on here. Imagine that. So kudos to Governor Greg Gianforte. Now, some of you may become big fans of the governor like myself, and we will put links for his website in case some of you decide to kick into his re-election campaign. More importantly, if you have any questions about the pistol brace rule, what's going on in Montana, or what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys know the drill by now. You can always contact us directly at WashingtonGunLaw.com, or you can call us directly at 425-765-0487. Now, in the meantime, let's remember, part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here at Washington Gun Law, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching, and stay safe.